Greetings from Las Vegas. Welcome to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Thursday night. Glad to be representing EOG. The three letters stand for Eye on Gaming. EOG.com, a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. We have one of our contributors participating on tonight's program. He's joined us weekly now for the past several months. Always good to chat with Ed Jones. He calls himself EdTheStatMan. He is a stat man. Go to the website, you'll see, EdTheStatMan.com. Shows his total portfolio since starting the website on June 1st earlier this year, plus 15.01 units. Ed, good evening. Welcome to the program. I'm impressed not only with the 15 units won, but I love the documentation, 15.01 units.
Yeah, keep it real.
And I see you have a breakdown, too. You're winning in pro football, winning in college football, winning in the MLB playoffs. You lost 4.7 units in NFL preseason action. You even got involved in World Cup soccer. There you dumped 1.55 units. Is it safe to say football and basketball your best sports?
Oh, yeah. I mean, most the major sports are football and basketball. Usually, I mean, NBA is usually good to me a lot also. NFL preseason has been good. Over the last couple of years, it just hasn't worked out well for me. And the World Cup was basically tailing some other people's plays. And basically, I was able to get numbers on... I found out in the World Cup that not being able to get good numbers really hurt. That market fluctuated a lot.
How do you know who to follow, Ed? Who do you trust when somebody comes with a selection? Do you have to track their plays over a certain period of time? Do you have to see success in the market for a long time before you'll blindly follow someone?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically your knowledge combined with just listening to other people speak. And the more you listen to other people speak, you get to understand their knowledge a whole lot better, and when they start winning on top of it, and it goes a long way in helping you out into making your decision. So I don't like to blame, or promote others, as to say I'm actually following them. The way I look at it is it's my money, it's my decision to make the move, and so it's like I'm using their opinion into incorporating that into my analysis. And before I do pull the trigger, to make sure I am, confident in the wager. For example, soccer. I really didn't know anything about soccer or the World Cup, so I listened a lot to the show, especially to Kevin Stott, and I got a lot of the plays from him. He did very well in World Cup, and unfortunately, the ones that I got on where I can get numbers comparative to the numbers that he was giving the selections out at happened to be a loser, and especially that tough game with the Americans where they lost the goal where that Ronaldo scored the goal with like a minute left to tie the game, which turned like a 400 dog into a loser. It was kind of the whole swing in that World Cup loss. So it's kind of like that.
Go ahead, Ed.
Oh, and then again with Palm Tree with the playoffs, like my playoffs. I mean, I look at things that I like to look at. I like to look at faded aces and quality aces. I like to look at the pitching staff from top to bottom, not only the starters but the quality bullpens. And listening to the Palm Tree, for example, within the MLB playoffs, 2014 MLB playoffs plus 7.74 units. I had a 2-unit play in there on the Orioles because everything I looked at came out to taking the Orioles in the series over the Tigers at plus 1.25. And I also was reading Palm Tree's site, and I lined up with him in that situation, and I ended up making it a 2-unit wager since I lined up with his analysis on the Orioles in the series. And then, but also that also included a $1.80 loss on the Nationals in the series because everything I looked at, I liked Washington in that series, and I ended up losing that series. So it's kind of like listening to, to the respected opinions, but incorporating it into my own analysis.
Here's my bias, Ed. When I listen to others, I tend to agree with the guys who line up with my methodologies. With horse racing, if guys talk about videotape replays, I'm all ears. I want to hear what they have to say. I love the guys who watch the videotape and analyze off of the tape. Same with the games. If I hear someone talking about the players and the coaches and talking about the game specifically and what happened, the drive charts and the stats and all, and he watches every play of every game, I tend to side with his analysis as opposed to somebody who might not watch the game. So that's a bias in what I do, and I know it. But there's different strokes for different folks, and all kinds of ways to handicap games. But I know when I listen to others, I tend to agree with those who do what I do.
Well, actually, I would say I'm the opposite in the sports that I know, like the major sports like football and basketball. I look at the people who think outside the box, and I look at people who can incorporate that, where I can take things from them and incorporate it into my own handicapping, and that's what I look at. And I've been able to meet some people that have been able to really come up with some different ways of looking at handicapping, and I've been incorporating it into that throughout the last years, and I think that's the reason why I've been successful here in the early going. The more knowledge you gain, the better.
Give me an example of what you're talking about then, Ed. The outside-the-box thinking. I hate to put you on the spot here, but give me something in the past 2 or 3 months that you've learned from someone else that you've incorporated in your game.
Well, I think it was more than just the last 2 or 3 months. It was more along the lines of talking to people over the last 2 or 3 years. And one of the things that they discussed previously was, I'm not even sure if they were happy with me giving this out, but I'll try to talk as general as possible. It's like with injuries, your lines move based on injuries to the star players. Everybody wants to quantify the injuries. And Aaron Rodgers is worth this much. Peyton Manning is worth this much. And that's what moves the market. However, the importance in injuries is kind of like what they would call group injuries to a certain position. For example, especially in football, if you're going to have a lot of injuries to the offensive line or defensive line, where you're playing 2 or 3 backups along those lines, where you have to work in cohesion, that's where your true value comes in understanding injuries.
You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with Ed Jones, a.k.a. Ed the Statman, talking football, basketball, and baseball on today's show. In fact, Ed will have 3 plays for us on tonight's program. He'll have 2 NFL selections and 1 Major League Baseball play. Ed, last week on the show, 3 selections. 1 good, 2 not so good. You got the money with New England. That was a good call. The Patriots over the Bengals. Bengals were no-shows for the most part, but New Orleans couldn't get there as a huge double-digit favorite. They were life and death to win the game, for God's sake. And Washington, it was a frustrating result on Monday. You just couldn't get inside the number against Seattle. The Seahawks kicked the field goal in the final minute of the game to cash.
Well, if you put them all in teasers, they'd be 3-0, John. Got to look at it from the positive. But anyway, Saints lost. Probably I broke one of the cardinal rules of actually laying double digits in the NFL, and they actually gave up 14 points off of turnovers, and they still won the game by 6. So, but if you're going to lay 10, you can't give up any points off turnovers for you to win that bet. Washington, that one stung a little bit, with the way that game played out at the end. Especially that one play that Russell Wilson made to get them. If he didn't make that first down, they punt, and Washington has a chance to come down and actually try to tie the game. And here he made that play where he ran out around the pocket and flipped it over to Lynch. And not only did Lynch catch it for the first down, but he took it all the way down inside the 30-yard line. And then where Washington one time out after they had the chip shot field goal, which kind of burned a lot of people. So I'm not really that stung a little bit, but I would make that bet it 9 times out of 10 again. So I'm not really concerned with that. And then again, the Patriots, as I said last week, once they lose again, I'm betting them again the following week off a loss, and we'll just keep going to that train. You know, it's like a horse going to water. Patriots lose, bet them again the following week. Patriots lose, just keep betting them. At this point, that trend has won so much that they'd probably have to lose against that trend twice for me to stop playing it.
I like that philosophy you have, too. Bet with no regret. 9 times out of 10, I'll make the same play. And I love those kind of wagers where even if you lose, you'd make the same bet again. There are no regrets moving forward. That's how you have to think. And our friend John Netto has a great line, too. You know, the idea of, gambling from a position of strength, you have to gamble from a position of abundance. And don't make every bet life or death. You know, break down your bankroll in units and, don't cry on a losing day or even a losing week. Know that you're in it for the long haul. And Ed mentioned injuries and the importance of cluster injuries to, say, a unit in football, how critical that can be. I mentioned late last night on the program about injury reports and how important that is to study those injury reports. You've got to focus on information that comes out after the line is posted and until the game goes off. That's where the market movement typically comes from, the injury reports, the weather, how it impacts a game or a total. Game plans. Sometimes you'll hear about game plans. One thing I didn't get to mention on last night's program, Ed, about this strategy is that you also have the benefit of subsequent games, more so in basketball than football. But every now and then in football, you kind of get an indicator of how strong a team might be. Now, you got to be careful that you don't jump to too many conclusions. But good case in point this week is New Mexico is playing host to San Diego State Friday night. Money's coming for the home dog. San Diego State was as high as a 6.5-point favorite. Now San Diego State was drilled down to just 4. So money for New Mexico. Last week, New Mexico defeated Texas San Antonio 21-9. It was quite the upset. UTSA was a 16-point favorite. Impossible to cover 16 when you only score 9. UTSA was blanked for most of the second half. They were up 9-0, and the Lobos scored the final 21 points of the game. But come Saturday morning, Ed, I'm going to look at that Friday night result between New Mexico and San Diego State, and I'll be able to judge a little bit about Texas San Antonio on Saturday. If the Lobos come back and play another good game against San Diego State, I might not hang UTSA as much for that home loss, 21-9 at the Alamo Dome last Saturday. Then again, if New Mexico were to lay an egg, San Diego State rolled over the Lobos at home, then I might look at Bobby the Owl's side. Bobby gave us Florida International last night, plus 13 at the time of the release at Chris, and now that number's been driven down to only 10. UTSA a 10-point favorite. So Bobby again on a live side. But that's something I like to look at in football and especially basketball. And the subsequent games, you can kind of get a feel for how these teams are playing at the current moment. And sometimes you watch a game on Thursday and it can affect the game on Saturday.
Absolutely. I mean, we discussed this earlier in the year with regards to injuries. I remember the Braxton Miller injury was the big popular conversation before week 1 of the college football season. And I was on the show discussing that it's not worth anything. It's not worth anything in this situation because they're playing Navy. They've outclassed Navy. They can push them around on the line of scrimmage. And they may start off slow, but basically it wasn't worth anything at the time. Later in the year is when it would be worth, a few points to the spread. And it played out that way, where the line was originally 17 with Miller in there. They bet it down to 12 with him out. Ohio State won that game by 17, and so they covered. And then the following week or two later, when they played Virginia Tech, they ended up losing that game outright. And that was more of the game where that injury kind of hurt them. And in basketball, again, the market overreacts to the initial injury so much. I mean, I kind of called this I kind of figured this out in the late 90s. I called it the Allen Iverson and Tracy McGrady theory when, they were in their primes. They were such a key part of their teams. the scoring average differentials were so great. They were averaging 28, 30 points a game, while the next closest scorer on their teams were averaging 14 points a game. So you pull that out of the lineup, and it's just such a huge difference. And the market was always overreacting to whenever McGrady or Iverson were not playing that night, and it always seemed that those teams were good bets the first game out, because basically, again, it's just the nature of the human being, especially the human athlete. It's like, you read the paperwork, this player's out, your superstar is out, all of a sudden this team's no good. And it kind of gets the other guys kind of pumped up to be able to show what they can do. But here's the issue, that in the long run, those players being out, that's when the warts start to show. It's easy to get pumped up for one game as an athlete and to be able to, pull an upset, especially with one of the star players out. But as the season goes on, that's when the depth of the team really starts to get exposed, because now those minutes need to be taken by your lesser players at the end of the bench, start to get moved up into the rotation, and that's where you start to lose in the long run.
You mentioned the names Iverson and McGrady. The NBA season 3 weeks away. Thursday, October 30th is the start of the NBA season, 21 days away. Hustle Double, an EOG contributor, he'll be hosting an NBA handicapping contest at EOG.com in the main forum, much like Boucher is helping us with the NHL contest. Hustle Double to be here tomorrow to promote that NBA contest. I talked yesterday, Ed, about prepping for the upcoming college basketball season. Are you prepping for the upcoming NBA season?
Absolutely. I started my prep last week. I usually start around the beginning of October. First thing I like to look at is the coaches and see the coaching changes and the coaching moves. And then I start to work on the roster second. I kind of like to, the way I look at it is like I want to kind of like see how these teams are going to react through the coaches first, because usually I want to see the coaches and what kind of systems they put in place, and then go to the rosters and see how those players are going to fit into these systems. And one of my moves I'm really looking at for coaching is Lionel Hollins to the Brooklyn Nets. I think Lionel Hollins is a very underrated coach, and I like him a lot. I think he puts systems in place. I mean, this guy got the Grizzlies to the conference finals one year, and so I would like to see what kind of defensive system. I mean, he's a defense-first coach, so I like to see what kind of system he puts in play for the Brooklyn Nets. And I think that could be a team to watch in a very weak East, to be some kind of sleeper if he's able to get these players on board. I mean, in the NBA, you have to kind of check your ego at the door, and I know he got run out of Memphis because the players didn't like being held back or, being put into a system that doesn't showcase their individual abilities. But again, that's what helps the team win, and if he can get the players to buy into the system, they should be successful.
That's the voice of Ed Jones. I'm John Kelly. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. It's a Thursday night, chatting sports and sports betting. Ed to go on record tonight with 3 selections, 2 NFL plays, and an MLB selection. He started a thread earlier this week at EOG.com. I thought it was the best of the week. It was titled Storm the Field Games. Storm the Field Games. When we return from our first time out of the program, we'll ask Ed about that angle. Teams storming the field and how they fare the following week. We had some excellent contributions from guys like Munson15, JHU Dad, Newport 2, Heim chimed in, so too did Sporty. We've got an excellent community brewing at EOG.com, getting better by the day, too. That's what I like. Chucky G's contributions are excellent. Brian S., when he comes to the website, always adds some interesting flavor. Mr. Bowling 300 and others. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sports books in San Jose, Costa Rica,
go to EOG.com.
And finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
go to EOG.com.
You get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Hi, this is Rick Alec, president of Sports Options. Sports Options is a sports information tool designed to give sports bettors of all types the necessary edge needed to improve their bottom line. With Sports Options, you'll never lay a bad number again. We provide you with live odds from the leading sports books in the world, from Costa Rica to Curacao, London to Las Vegas, and everywhere in between. Sports Options also provides the fastest and most accurate injury information, lightning-quick score updates, and game analysis from 30-year handicapping veteran Mark Simons. We offer affordable services for players of all levels, starting at just $99 per month. To see which service best fits your needs, you can take advantage of our 7-day free trial. No credit card is needed. Just go to www.sportsoptions.com and click on the free trial link. I'm confident you'll be impressed with our product, and you'll find it the most complete and comprehensive on the market. In fact, if you don't like Sports Options after 30 days, we'll refund you 100% of your subscription costs, no questions asked. Go to sportsoptions.com for all the details, or call 702-835-1743, and one of our friendly customer service representatives will be happy to help you. Sports Options, information you can bet on.
And we are back, the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Thursday night, representing Ion Gaming, or EOG.com. Ed the Statman, our featured guest every Thursday night. His website, EdTheStatMan.com. He's flipped the script on the sports advisory service. He's charging you for his content, his analysis, his commentary behind the selections. The plays are free. Go to EdTheStatMan.com or follow him on Twitter at EdTheStatMan. If you want to hear the analysis behind the selections, that'll cost you $19.99 per month. And some of your content appears at EOG.com, and I thank you for contributing there, Ed. You talked this week about storm the field games when college programs, football or basketball, come out, are excited after a victory. What happens to them in the very next games? You had some interesting examples, some firsthand examples. When you were 5 years old, Ed, you remember partying in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that was the first year the Phillies won the World Series in 97 years. And I mean, it wasn't really a storm the field game. That was just kind of like a party time. But you can kind of incorporate that into college, that if they're going to party like that constantly, and I'm sure there was unbelievable parties in Oxford, Mississippi all week this week, that it's going to be difficult to get up for a game the following week. I followed the trend a lot in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it usually worked like clockwork. Well, once you had a storm the field game, and then the team came back and played the following week, especially on the road, it was just a huge letdown situation. And I know you also have the storm the court games in college basketball. I was just checking out there to see if anybody still did that, because I know that now with all of the liabilities and issues with people getting injured, and now that the conference has banned that and actually fined the schools a lot of money if they do storm the field. But this weekend, this is the first weekend I've seen in a while in college football where I saw two firsthand where they stormed the field, not only in Mississippi, but they stormed the field in Rutgers for their first ever Big Ten win. And then I was also told that they stormed the field in TCU after the win over Oklahoma. And so some of them teams were subsequently fined, especially they talked about Mississippi being fined $75,000 or something, and that people were so happy with the win over Alabama that they set up one of them internet funding accounts and have actually raised $93,000 towards repaying that fine. So that's got to be one of the top storm the field games now. And now Mississippi turns around and comes back against Texas A&M on the road, and Texas A&M can't be in that good of a mood after getting totally their season kind of wiped out so far last week at Mississippi State. So if anybody's set up for a monster letdown situation this week, it is Ole Miss at Texas A&M, and I'm going to be looking eventually at the Texas A&M side. I saw the line open at 3 or 3.5, and it's now down to Texas A&M -1.5. So I'm just going to sit back and watch that one go back and probably get involved in Texas A&M at some point.
And I see a lot of 2s and 2.5s now in the marketplace on that game. Ed, Newport 2 at EOG.com. He said Ole Miss is on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Kids will be kids. He laid 1.5 on A&M. He likes the A&M side. And I like the distinction you made there between college football and college basketball, or football and basketball in general. Storm the field in football. Storm the court in basketball. Sporty at EOG.com. He said this is a must-watch angle for college basketball. Heim wrote that it works much better in college basketball because there's less time to recover from the hangover.
Yeah, well, especially in college hoops, usually the majority of the games are played Wednesday and Saturday. So if you're storming the court on Wednesday and then you go into the weekend, the college kids are partying probably Thursday night and Friday night into Saturday. And then you have to get up for a Saturday game. Must be pretty difficult. One
of my favorite angles, Ed, I've discovered through the years, anytime I hear the word letdown, I always think first half. Forget the full game. Bet them in the 30 minutes, because that's where your letdown is going to take place, right at the start of the game. You're going to be hungover from the game before, and so until the Giant wakes up, maybe for another big effort, maybe you just sneak in, get out in the first half.
Yeah, that's a good angle, and I was actually thinking about that tonight with regards to first half plays, because as the Colts jumped out to a 24-0 lead at the end of the first quarter in tonight's NFL game, I'm like, what gives in these NFL Thursday night games all of a sudden, where they're just blowouts and one team is just jumping out to huge leads in the first half in the game? I mean, the Colts were the away team tonight, so it wasn't the home team. The Giants jumped out as an away team, so again, that further proves that it's not just being home that you can jump out to the early lead. But how about this, John? I'm looking at these games this year on these Thursday nights, and looking at the Thursday nights, teams are coming off a short rest. So I kind of incorporated the way we look at NBA games. When you look at the NBA teams off back-to-back games, and when you're handicapping it, you always look to the night before and see what team expended the most energy. What team was in a kind of a dogfight down the stretch where they were trading basket for basket, or what team had to come back from a 15-point deficit in the fourth quarter to win the game, and now go on the road in a back-to-back situation, and you kind of want to always look to bet against those teams. So now in the NFL, I kind of incorporate that into the NFL, thinking about these Thursday night games tonight, and I was like, well, you kind of have to look at these Thursday night games as teams having no rest, because they're really on a very short week and not much recovery time in the NFL. 3 days in the NFL is probably the equivalent of no rest in the NBA. And so I looked at the teams that were kind of getting smacked around in the first half with the blowouts. And you look back to the previous Sunday, look at the Texans. They came from behind to beat the Dallas Cowboys Sunday. Actually, they came back from behind in a frantic rally to tie the Dallas Cowboys before losing in overtime. So they expended a little bit more energy probably in a game where the Colts were kind of front runners most of the time against the Baltimore Ravens. Last week, it was the Packers that jumped out and smacked around the Minnesota Vikings. Go back to their previous Sunday. The Packers kind of cruised in the second half of their game, winning by 21 over the Bears, while the Vikings were going back and forth with the Falcons in their game. Previous week before that, look at the Redskins versus the Giants. The Redskins were in that shootout with the Eagles the previous Sunday, where it was a 37-34 game where those two teams were going back and forth, and the Redskins expended a lot of energy in that game, where the Giants had a pretty easy win against Houston and led for most of the second half, where there was it was more of like a low-stress win. So I'm going to keep an eye on that going forward here in these Thursday night games, and look for the teams this weekend who, I don't know what the next week's Thursday night game is. I was going to look it up, but I haven't yet. But and look at these teams on Sunday and find out how their game went on Sunday, and try to jump in on Thursday night, maybe with first quarter, first half bets in the situation to see if these teams expended more energy, and it correlates into getting blown out here on Thursday night with short rest.
Next Thursday night, Ed, the New England Patriots home to the New York Jets. The 12-day line at the Westgate Hotel Casino, I think it's the resort now. Westgate Resort Casino has the Patriots a 9.5-point favorite over the Jets. And one thing I would think of is over before under. Our friend Teddy KGB at EOG.com is charting the totals on these spotlight games every Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night. NFL spotlight games this year, 14-3 to the over. Is this coincidental, or is there something to this?
You know, it's funny. I don't know this. I think I don't have the stats in front of me at this point. I can look them up shortly, but I think there's more unders than overs this year. I think actually unders are coming out more than overs, or they were at some point. So I don't understand why the overs are coming out more on the primetime games than not. You would kind of expect, with them being in the single window time slots, with people chasing, etc., that the historical mantra is that those favorites and overs are always inflated on these primetime games. So it's kind of like don't really have any answer for you on that as to why.
Do you think teams get jacked up for these isolated games, the Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, knowing that the league is watching, people around the country are watching, that they are the focus of the NFL that week, being in those isolated spots? You think they get jacked up a little bit, or do you think game plans, they're a little more excited to play under the lights? And let's see, it's nighttime football too, right, as opposed to a lot of the daytime action we get on a Sunday. And what's more, I think, let's see, another thing in favor of the over. Oh, how about commercial breaks? Are they any longer on Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night than the regular Sunday afternoon action?
I don't think so. And when you talk about jacked up, I mean, the offenses will be jacked up, but you would think the defenses would be equally jacked up. And you look at some of the sides in these games, and they're straight blowouts. I mean, was Cincinnati really jacked up last Sunday night? Was Tampa Bay jacked up when they got drilled by almost 50 that one game? So, like I said, I don't really think there's any rhyme or reason or trend as to point to more overs than unders. I mean, it is such a short sample size, and I think that the bookmakers may adjust if they're going to keep taking a lot of over bets and getting beaten on these primetime games.
That's the voice of Ed Jones. I'm John Kelly. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. We still have to cover Week 6 in the National Football League. We'll ask Ed for a quick comment on all of the games to be played this week. He'll go on record with 2 selections in football, and you've got 1 play in baseball. Let's talk about the baseball playoffs quickly. ALCS has the Baltimore Orioles playing host to the Kansas City Royals. Game 1 in the best-of-7 series tomorrow. Tillman against Shields at Pinnacle right now. The O's, $1.31 favorite. The total is 7 over. Your thoughts on the O's and Royals?
It seems like with these Royals, that was one of the reasons why I had such a good first round, is that after that win, I mean, you have one of these teams that's a young team, and they're just playing with a lot of momentum. And I kind of liked them a little bit against the A's, but I did not play them, and I was kind of happy that I didn't play them after they were getting beat up by John Lester early on. And then I woke up the next morning and was in for the shock of my life that I went to bed, in a 7-2 game or whatever it was, and they came back and won in extra innings. And I took that game and said, wow, this franchise has not been in the playoffs for 30 years. This is a young team that really doesn't know any better. And this was a team that wasn't supposed to win that game against the A's, against one of the top pitchers in baseball, who basically won the World Series the year before with the Red Sox. And for them to not quit and to come back and win that game, I said, this is going to be, I think every year in MLB playoffs, there's always one of those momentum teams that generate, and there's really nothing to quantify this. And it's just that they just have it. And I said, you know what? I like the way this team came back, and I like the, I think that's a big momentum win. And so, in baseball, everybody in the other sports always like to look at the teams off the loss and play the zigzag. But in baseball, you're only betting odds, and you're only betting straight up winners. So, you want to find the streaks and just keep hitting them. And I bet the Royals in Game 1. They won that game in extra innings. I bet the Royals in Game 2. They won that game in extra innings. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to keep betting this team until they lose. And probably, maybe even if they win these first couple of games against Baltimore, I'm going to keep betting until they lose 2 straight games, because they're showing a lot of moxie in the playoffs, and they're not supposed to be here, and they're not supposed to be beating the Angels at home in extra innings, and shutting and having their pitching staff shutting down. But then going back to the pitching staff, they got probably the best bullpen in baseball. 7, 8, and 9. If you can get to 7, 8, and 9, I mean, they have the best chance of anybody to win. And I don't think the market has caught up on this team yet. And I was able to get plus 124 here in Game 1. In Game 951, I got the Royals here at plus 124. I got Shields, who hasn't pitched. He actually hasn't pitched well the first couple of games in the playoffs, but he's a little bit more playoff savvy in this situation than Tillman. So I kind of get what I think is kind of a little bit of a better playoff pitcher with the team with momentum here.
So the first of 3 plays from Ed the Statman tonight, betting number 951, the Kansas City Royals in Game 1 over the Baltimore Orioles. He took $1.24. Quick thoughts on the NLCS. TBS will televise the ALCS. Fox has the NLCS. Saturday, 5:05 first pitch. St. Louis home to San Francisco. Wainwright and Bumgarner, 2 of my favorite, though both are coming off subpar efforts. Wainwright, $1.21 favorite. The total is 6.5 under. Interesting to note, both the ALCS and NLCS, Ed, are similarly priced in terms of series price. I see where Skybook has both home teams, Baltimore and St. Louis, $1.35 to advance to the World Series.
Exactly. I think that if you look at the comparison, these teams are pretty much even. I mean, look at San Francisco. San Francisco is one of these teams that I've had a lot of trouble with in the postseason because they don't really overwhelm you on paper. You look at go position by position, and they don't win many position battles matching up against the Cardinals. But it seems like in the NL playoffs, the last 2 times they were in, they were just, I think I've bet against them every time in the NL playoffs, the last two years they were in, and they've won every series, and they've beat me again early on here with the Nationals, against the Nationals. So it's kind of difficult for me to figure out this San Francisco team, and it's like Bruce Bochy never makes any mistakes in the dugout, and that's the one consistent with these teams, with the Giants, is that he doesn't make any mistakes. Matheny, he's also a pretty good coach. I can't knock him. I think it's a pick-em matchup in the dugouts. If you look at the position players, the Cardinals, they match up very well position for position, but it's just something about these Giants I can't figure out. And taking Bumgarner with plus odds again seems valuable at this point. So I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with this series. I'm going to sit back and look at this a little bit more tomorrow night.
And that's the player advantage. Dink talked about that earlier this week. The biggest edge the gambler has is the selectivity. He doesn't have to play. He can pass or play, whereas the house, they have to set a number on each and every game. Of course, the house has that 11-10 edge, and that's huge. NFL action, Ed the Statman. We've got about 15 minutes remaining in the program. Count 14 games to cover, including the Monday Nighter between St. Louis and San Francisco. How about a minute the game on our NFL rundown? Highlight your selections if you would. The New York Jets are home to the Denver Broncos. Broncos on the road, -9, -1.05 at Chris right now. The total is 47.5.
Yeah, manhood game here for the Jets. I mean, they got totally annihilated early on. I mean, last week against San Diego, it was just one of the most disgraceful performances in the NFL. They were under 100 yards for most of the game. And it seemed today that Michael Vick came out and said that he actually wasn't even ready to play the game when they put him in at halftime. Geno Smith was missing meetings. This is it. I mean, I think this is the Jets' season here. Because if they lose this game, I think Ryan's not going to be further much longer there to be fired. I probably it will last a year. So I think this is kind of like the last hurrah for the Jets to save their season. Denver's coming in and played very well. Like I said, I'm anti-Denver a little bit this year. I have under 11.5. But I'm okay with the way they've started. I kind of figured they would start off strong. I think later on in the season is when they'll tail off a little bit, especially with Manning being a lot older and absorbing hits throughout the season. If you have to play this game, I'm probably going to end up playing the Jets. I seen it get to 10, which is a double-digit home dog in the NFL. It's kind of like a must-play. I mean, you're not going to get hurt playing teams. I mean, you're not going to get hurt playing home dogs over a touchdown in the NFL either. So I'm going to play the Jets in this game eventually.
Cleveland home to Pittsburgh. The Browns are 1.5-point favorites. The total is 47. We all remember what happened in Week 1. Pittsburgh blew a 24-point lead, had a re-rally, beat the Browns 30-27 on a last-second field goal. What happens in the rematch?
Yeah, I think this is actually the first of the division rematches we got this year with the Steelers and the Browns, and I'm incorporating that angle into this game is the fact that the Steelers aren't going to come in sleepwalking in this situation and get caught up with the Browns. I mean, it's one of the teams they've beat pretty badly throughout the years. And with the fact that the Browns were able to rally in that game and also rally last week against Tennessee, I don't think that's going to catch the Steelers off guard, and I don't think you're going to catch the Steelers napping here. Tomlin was pretty PO'd after the way they blew that Tampa Bay game, and they came out, didn't really look that good against Jacksonville either. So I look for them. Now they're underdogs to the Browns, a team they have beaten historically throughout the last 10 years or so. And I like the Steelers here. And I made that play already. I took 1.5, 253 Steelers plus 1.5 will be another one of my selections here on the show.
So the second of 3 plays from Ed the Statman, betting number 253. Pittsburgh plus 1.5 over Cleveland. Next in the rotation, Tennessee is home to Jacksonville. Not a sportsbook in the world has a number on this game except for Station Casinos. Art Manteris posting Tennessee a 5-point favorite. Wonder if he knows who's going to start at quarterback for the Titans. Will it be the injury-plagued Jake Locker or his backup, Charlie Whitehurst? Locker can't stay healthy. He's got a hand injury. He's listed questionable. What do you do with the Tennessee-Jacksonville game, Ed?
Yeah, I didn't really look at it yet, but just, I mean, with that, you're telling me 5, and the way the Titans played last week, and they could be leading the game by 25 and still can't win. But you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, for some reason, if you just look at the line movement and consider that if the line movement is equal to the money on the game, that means the Jacksonville Jaguars got the money all 5 weeks so far in the NFL season, and they've lost all 5 games to the spread. So a lot of if you equate the line movement to the money, a lot of people are losing a lot of money on Jacksonville. But I mean, if you look at this situation, this is the best of any where they have a chance to pull a victory out. And they played the Steelers and kind of mano-a-mano last week until there was a late interception by Bortles, which kind of blew the cover for the Jaguars. So I mean, at 5, I think it's pretty rich. I think it's, especially if Whitehurst is quarterback, and I think it's very rich.
Atlanta home to Chicago. The Falcons -3. The total 54.
Yeah, Falcons are Jekyll and Hyde team, and some people didn't like my analysis last week that the Falcons can't win on the road, and so what happened? The Falcons went out and they couldn't win on the road again. So it's just, but they can win at home. But the Bears, I think the Bears are going to bounce back to this situation this week. They led the Panthers last week at home and completely blew the lead and turned the ball over way too much in the second half. But, the market was absolutely in love with the Bears after the 2 primetime wins, and they backed them against the Packers, and then they backed them again last week against the Panthers, and they lost both of those weeks. So I think if there's any of a bounce-back week, it could be this week against the Falcons. It's going to be a pretty good game. I would lean to the Bears a little bit coming off that loss, but again, the Falcons are Jekyll and Hyde team at home versus on the road. So that's an overall difficult one to call with the slight lean to the Bears.
Miami hosting Green Bay. The Packers on the road, 3-point favorites. The total, 48.5.
Yeah, tough game for Green Bay coming off of three straight division games. And as I wrote in my off-season schedule analysis for Green Bay, this could be a potential letdown situation because, they kind of achieved what they needed to achieve of going 2-1 in those 3 division games and have a little bit of an edge on the division. And now, all of a sudden, go down to Miami, possible, vacation destination, especially being in Green Bay the whole time. I'm sure they'll probably get a lot of backers too, of the Packers fans back down there. But again, tough game to call. Miami's coming off the bye, so the home dog coming off the bye probably in a better situation. So if I had a lean to it, I would lean to Miami in this situation due to the fact that the Packers are non-conference coming off of 3 straight division games.
Here's a division game out of the NFC North. Minnesota hosting Detroit. The Lions on the road at Westgate right now. 1.5-point favorites. The total on the game is 45. Kelvin Johnson, Megatron, listed questionable with an ankle injury.
Yeah, difficult game. The forecast is this probably has the longest injury list of the week, and that's why there hasn't been many books posting lines. The Lions really blew that one last week. They should have beat Buffalo, but 3 missed field goals, and the kicker was there for a week, 3 missed field goals, and now he's gone. And Minnesota coming off that burial on Thursday night, where they started Christian Ponder, their 3rd-string quarterback. So if Teddy Bridgewater comes back, it could be a different team. This is very difficult to call. Calvin Johnson is such an integral part of the Lions' offense. And I think Reggie Bush is also questionable. He didn't even play last week against the Bills. So it's just too many injuries and too many questions here to even take this game seriously.
Do you take this game seriously? Cincinnati home to Carolina. The Bengals 7-point favorites, -7, -1.05 at Chris right now. The total on the game is 43.5. Chris, by the way, the most respected sports book in the world. That's according to my friend Viejo Dinosaur, who chimed in tonight at EOG.com. I'll tell you what he says about the Seattle-Dallas game in a moment. Ed, do you have a wager on the Cincinnati-Carolina game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the better plays on the board is 263 Carolina. I took 7 and laid 15 cents on the 7. Cincinnati, I don't know. I was against them last week, and I don't understand all this, the ESPN analysis of how they're such an incredible team and they're a phenomenal team. I did have them rated as probably my most disappointing team in my off-season write-ups this year, especially after losing both quality coordinators that they had. And their opening 3 games where let's look at the quality of their wins so far. Okay, they beat Baltimore where they kicked 6 field goals and couldn't score a touchdown. And then there was more of a coin flip game where the Ravens had a chance to actually win the game at the end, but Flacco kind of blew it in the red zone. Then they come home and they beat Atlanta, who has absolutely gotten blown out on the road in every game they played this year. They lost by double digits. And then they come home and beat Tennessee. Look at the quality of that win now. Tennessee has been one of the worst teams in the NFL. And now all of a sudden they go into the bye week and everybody anoints them as the best team in the NFL because they're 3-0. And that's part of the reason why I was against them last week against New England. And now they're playing another division winner from last year in Carolina, and having to lay a touchdown to this Carolina team, no way. I think Carolina's going to even be a good bet on the money line here, and I think Carolina's going to win this game straight up. Money
is showing on Carolina. Pinnacle has that game down to 6.5 right now, -6.5, -09. EdTheStatMan says he took Betting number 263, Carolina +7, laid $1.15. We still have about 6 or 7 more games to cover and about 5 more minutes to do it. Want to promote Ed's website, EdTheStatMan.com. If you've never visited EdTheStatMan.com, check it out tonight or tomorrow sometime. Check out his portfolio. I'm impressed by his record keeping. He's up more than 15 units on the season. Well, he started the website, I should say, June 1st of this year. So he's up 15 units since that time, and we hope he continues on that trend. Buffalo is home to New England, Ed. New England -3 plus $1.05, the total 49. Quick thoughts on this game.
Quick thoughts, Bill Belichick versus Doug Marrone. Who do you like in that matchup? Tom Brady versus Kyle Orton. Who do you like in that matchup? So it's kind of like there's only one way to go in that game.
Baltimore.
New England.
Baltimore on the road against Tampa Bay. Baltimore, as you like to say, -3, -$1.35, the total 43.5.
Yeah, I pass on that game. Just complete pass.
Oakland is hosting San Diego. The Chargers on the road, 7, the total 43.
This is another game I want to get interested in. I want to back the Raiders here and the touchdown. You look at this game, Raiders are a winless team coming off a bye, which is a good historical trend in the NFL. But you also have the coaching change. And I think Sparano is a good interim coach for this team, because you could have told that the Raiders could have cared less about playing for that coach, Allen, for the past couple of years now. And now you get Sparano, who's one of them rah-rah guys and one of them unorthodox thinkers. And don't forget that he's the only coach not named Belichick to win an AFC East title since the division realignment in 2002. So he does have some pedigree there where he can be respected. And don't forget, he's an unorthodox thinker. He was the one that incorporated the Wildcat to beat New England that year. And don't forget they have Darren McFadden on the team, who was, became a Heisman Trophy finalist, running a Wildcat-type offense in Arkansas. So I'd be interested to see if they pull some of that out and get McFadden more involved in the offense. But with the Chargers, I still think that they've been the best team so far in the first 5 weeks of the season. But this is a rivalry game that's always played tightly, and it's always played close between these two teams. So I'm looking at the Raiders here to come off the bye, 2 weeks, coaching change, and I'm looking for the Raiders, but I'm looking for maybe a 7.5 for it to pick up to by game time. I think more of the money's going to come in with the Chargers by the time it gets closer to kickoff.
Less than 2 minutes remaining on the program. Next in the rotation, Seattle against Dallas. What an interesting game this is. The defending Super Bowl champs, the Seahawks, home to Steve McLaughlin's Dallas Cowboys. 4-1 on the early season. They claim to be the surprise of the early 2014 year. Seattle -9, -$1.05, the total 47. Our mutual friend VAO Dinosaur framed this game as Seattle's Richard Sherman against Dallas's Des Bryant. Who wins that matchup, Ed?
Man, that's probably the matchup of the year when you're talking about wide receiver versus cornerback that we're probably going to see. So, for me, it's difficult. I'm not really too sold on the Cowboys yet. They're kind of due for a clunker, and they really struggled with Houston last week. So Seattle, you just can't bet against them at home, and I think that the market is finally realizing that, as this is maybe the first time that we've seen movement going up on Seattle, where it went from -8 to -9. And so it's just a difficult game. I think the game is actually priced right, and if Seattle wins this game between 7 to 10 points, I think that's probably correct. And so it's going to be a pass for me.
Arizona home to Washington. You've got to know your quarterback depth chart for the Cardinals. Carson Palmer hasn't started since week 1. Drew Stanton has a concussion. He's listed questionable. Logan Thomas is the third stringer for Arizona. Station Casinos has Arizona a 3.5-point favorite right now.
Yeah, this is it for me. I have Redskins over 7.5 in a season win total. So at 1 and 4, if they don't win this game, I'm pretty much toast on that bet. So and then tying that up again with the Redskins and for this season, look for them to. This is either a win or the season's over situation. So I would look to back Washington here, especially with the quarterback problems that the Cardinals are having.
Finally, the Eagles and Giants in Philadelphia. Eagles 2.5. The total 50.5.
I'll pass on that game. I mean, the modelers are going to pay the Eagles definitely because of the way they've been winning recently. So that line will probably continue going down in the Giants' favor. But I can't figure out the Eagles. It's hard to pay a team scoring 31 points a game.
Ed's 3 plays on tonight's show. In the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers plus 1.5, the Carolina Panthers plus 7 minus $1.15, and tomorrow night, the Kansas City Royals plus $1.24 in Game 1 against the Baltimore Orioles. For Ed Jones, I'm John Kelly. Thanks for listening.